masculinity shortage. If you don't believe me, check this out.
Ooh, tell me more.
How do you think this man responded to me saying that I'm attracted to masculinity? He says, I don't know where I rank on the masculine scale.
Which means he gave the best possible answer. Because masculinity is not just one thing. It is not a single unified practice. It is and always has been culturally variable. Very variable. And so knowing nothing else about this fella, nothing about his personal masculine presentation or performance, what I can surmise is that he at least adopts a position of critical masculinity. That he is aware that there is more than one masculinity, one standard. And that he has thought about how he may measure up to those standards. That he is in some way reflective about his own masculinity.
What?
Oh, I see. The problem is that you didn't know any of that.
Masculinity are just the qualities or attributes associated with men.
So the first rule when we're talking about any complex social phenomenon, you don't stop with the one-sentence concise dictionary definition offered about said phenomenon. For example, sociologists and social theorists are just as likely to tell you that masculinity is about the acquisition and exercise of power and dominance. And masculine practices, at least since the 1990s, have often been discussed in terms of 4 different categories, those being hegemonic, complicit, marginalized, and subordinate. These categories, of course, also contain subcategories like hegemonic masculinity, also containing toxic masculinity, or drag kings being a part of marginalized masculinity, or feminist dads practicing a kind of subordinate masculinity. This photograph is a particularly good example, though, because it demonstrates that you don't necessarily occupy just one of these 4 types. Move the word feminist from these t-shirts and you can see that he's also practicing and embodying hegemonic masculinity. So masculinity is complicated and sometimes beautiful and often confusing and frequently awful, but one thing it is never is that simple and straightforward.
Have a grown man question whether or not if he's even masculine shows you the state of how men are thinking.
Level of openness, self-reflection, willingness to question what it is to be a man and whether you measure up. Those are all signs of healthy masculinity. A more inclusive and compassionate approach to gender politics. In all likelihood, a much more empathetic and accepting partner and friend. Which is not to oversell this guy. All that we know about him is that he is questioning his own masculinity. But this was the rare video about a conversation on a dating app that actually left me with more hope than I had going into it.